Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you've got a bit lost. Welcome everyone, I'm Chatty, this is my channel Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about 5 bookish plans I have for 2025. So this is sort of like around what I want to be reading and certain projects that I want to be doing in 2025. It's not a goal video. I'm going to reflect on my 2024 goals and talk about goals for 2025 in another video. This is just me getting really excited about 5 things I want to do in 25. I love watching people's videos of like 24 books in 24 and all of those kind of things. But I know I need to be a lot more flexible with what I'm wanting to read and kind of more tune in to what feels the right things for me to read at that moment. So a little bit more mood reading, and I'm a planner, so I find that a bit weird. So I'm trying to help myself be better at that, which is what these plans are going to help me do, while still letting me try things out and yada yada yada. I forgot where that train of thought was going, so we're just going to ignore it and carry on. If you've not been on my channel before, my long videos such as this one, I do not edit, the camera keeps rolling. It's continuous, there is chaos, we will see what happens. I don't have my teacup for a little gimmick, so I'll just use an invisible one. If you haven't got the visuals, please imagine a lovely, tiny, tiny little teacup that I'm going to pretend to have a shot of tea from. So cheers, it's one shot, no editing. Clink, 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 clink. So I may also, within this video, as well as talking about my 5 reading plans for 2025, I might also let you know which books I'm reading for the REINDEER Readathon. Haven't done a specific video for that one because it's basically a regurgitation of the things I wanted to read by the end of the year, because it's like wintry books that I'm really in the mood for at the moment, and many books that I didn't actually get around to reading because, you know, we don't read to plan. And I might also let you know a little bit about sharing some books with people and being like a little bit of a lending library, which is fun. It's just very, very, very tiny. But the main thing is the 5 plans. So the first plan for 2025 is I want to reread a series that I love, specifically an epic fantasy series. So I had 3 options. I have the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons. I absolutely adore this series. It's total chaos. The plotting's amazing. Snarkasm rules. Love this series. I also have just the queen of epic fantasy, character arcs, amazingness, Robin Hobb's The Realm of the Elderlings. Yes, that series, that really, really, really long series that I love. I want to reread it. And also, I have reread this particular book, The Shadow of What Was Lost, already. That is because I needed to, in order to continue with the series and read the rest of the Licanius trilogy by James Islington, or Islington, still don't know which way you say it. And the plot is just phenomenal. I absolutely adore this trilogy so much. It's just so incredible, and I want to reread it knowing where you end up at the end and how it all ties together, and just the craft of the plot is fabulous. So I want to reread that one as well. So rereading all of these in 2025 is going to mean I probably then read nothing else, and I do want to read new books as well. So I'm only going to pick one, and I kind of already know which one it's going to be, and it is rereading Robin Hobb. I already know I'm going to do this one. So as much as I do want to read the other ones, I'm like, well, if it's only going to be one, it has to be Hobb, because I basically finished the final book last year. So that was the end of 2023, which was Assassin's Fate. And as soon as I finished it, I was like, oh my goodness, I just can't wait to reread this. I cannot wait to reread this. So I was like, you know what, I'll do it in 2025. And that has stayed. I did throw other ones in the mix because I wanted to think about maybe rereading them, but it's like, no, I want to read Hobb. So I am going to reread the entire Realm of the Elderlings series. Maybe not all in 2025. I'm probably just going to start it, but at least the first 3 trilogies. So Farseer, Live Ships, and Tawny Man. My second plan for 2025 is to make use of a TBR tin. So I have done this previously, but one of the reasons I found I didn't want to use my TBR tin was because there were certain books that I knew I was going to be in the mood for in certain seasons. I'm a seasonal reader, and also I get worried about starting too many series. So what I have done, oh, my little reindeer antler is flopping down. I've got, if you haven't got the visuals for this, I am wearing a headband with sparkly reindeer antlers and a mini Santa hat, and one of them has got crushed from where it's been sat in my cupboard and is flopping, so I've got a bit of a droopy antler. Anyway, tangents aside, I have gone through all of the books that I have. So I have like a list of my hauls from when I started really hauling books, and I have got a list of 15 TBR vets that I feel are going to be easy for me to kind of pick up no matter the season. So they're not season based, and if they are starting a series, it kind of feels okay because it's been one I've wanted to start for a while, and it feels like I've got the whole year. Like, it doesn't need to be finished, just I'd like to read these possibly. And then I have a list of 15 new books that have come into my house. So anything that I kind of hauled in 2024 and beyond are on that list of new books. So let me share those with you. So here we go. Here is a tin. It sounds a bit empty because I haven't put all of them in yet. And I'll tell you for why. Some books were quite easy to pull off my shelves. Others are hidden behind the stacks of doom, and I haven't got time to be getting them out. So ones I really can't access, I've just put in this tin. And I have colour coordinated. So we have greens and purples. So purples are loved books that have been sat there a long time. And greens, like the spring, are new. So I know which one is which. And my plan is for me to read 4 vets and 4 new books within 2025. So let us start off by going through the vets. And the first one I have is actually a reread, but I haven't read this for a really long time. And it is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I bought this copy of this book because I really love this edition. It is penguin, I think it's like a colourful penguin classic. It's one of the children's ones, and they have like different colours. And it's got a silhouette of the March sisters on the front, and then things like needles, hair combs, flowers, all sort of around it. And it's this sort of purpley blue colour, and it's really pretty. So I'd love to read from this copy. I've never read from this copy. I cannot remember when I last read Little Women. And this I did haul in 2021, and it's been just sat there on my shelf. I got it for my birthday, I think, and it's just been sat there and I've never read it. So I would like to. So there we go. TBR Veteran 1. TBR Veteran 2 is a shame of a book. It's a shameful, shameful one, purely because I haven't read it yet. And it's not the book's fault. The book is great. I don't know why I keep blanking, which is why it's in this tin. And that is, let's call it a Doomsday by Katie Henry. This was one of the first books I bought myself when I started buying new books again. When I first found BookTube, and I went through videos and was like, oh my goodness, books specifically on mental health? That sounds brilliant. I would love to read one of those. This one sounds great. I'll buy this one. It's a gorgeously floppy paperback. It feels so nice in my hands. It's so smooth. It's very yellow and eye-catching. It has a tin on it called, let's call it a Doomsday with tomatoes on it. It's very eye-catching. It's YA about social issues. I love that. And I haven't read it. And it's been on so many I need to read this by the end of the year lists, and it still hasn't been read. So here's hoping that happens this year. I definitely feel like when I get to it, I am going to love it. I now have a non-fiction, TBR Vet. Again, a friend of mine said she really enjoyed this book. I wanted to read more books on feminism. So I have The Guilty Feminist by Deborah Frances White. Never read it, and it's been sat on my shelf for a long time. So let's tackle that one. I'm going to pull one out the tin now. What have I got in the tin here? So my first book that I haven't accessed because it's in the tin. This is possibly one of the longest books I've had. This is Galileo's Daughter. This was pre-book hauling. This is a non-fiction about Galileo and his daughter. And this is a really special book. And even if I don't like it, I'm going to keep it on my shelf because from where my parents live, where I was born, our local Catholic priest, who's absolutely lovely, it's called Father Lynch. He baptized me. He was such a lovely person in our parish, and then he actually came back to our parish. They get moved around, but he came back to our parish to retire and kind of stayed there. And then and he assisted at my wedding when I got married, and it was just so lovely. And then when he died, they kind of put his book collection out and said, if you want to have a momentum, come and take some books. And Galileo's Daughter was the book that I picked from that, and I still haven't read it. So there we go. That's book number five. I then have a very pretty fantasy magical realism book. This is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. We have this beautiful tree on the front with its branches and then also its roots, and there's like flowers and shells and music notes and worlds and moons and things on it. It just looks really ethereal. This is a story of Mozart's sister, and Mozart and his sister used to create this world called the Kingdom of Back, and it's kind of about her story. So it's a mixture of them playing with this magical world and also her ability as a musician and how she was kind of overlooked because she was a girl, not a boy. It sounds brilliant. I really want to read it, and I haven't. Moving on to, again, another book that I think is brilliant. I actually got this in a book box. I did a one-off book box about, it was sort of like important books or something like that, but I just did a one-off because I wasn't sure if all of them were going to be for me. But this was definitely a feminist book. This is called Conjure Women by Afia Atakora. So this is mainly historical fiction, but I think it's got a bit of magical realism in it. I don't know if it's from like a spirituality sense of things or what specifically it's from, but it is about, it's set in the 1700s. It is about black characters in a slave plantation and kind of how they manage, I don't know more than that. I feel there's something to do with midwifery and there's something to do with the baby. There might be something to do also with the plantation owner, so the slaver's wife, daughter or something, but I'm not sure. But it's about mother and daughter relationships within this, and I think it sounds brilliant. I've heard really good things about it and I want to read it, and I haven't, so it's on the list. Next is a fantasy book that I have borrowed and have never read. This is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I was lent to this by my friend Dave, and I still have it in my house and have never read it. He has read it, so I don't think he minds me having borrowed it, because he's not in a hurry for it back. Or he's totally forgotten that I have it in my house. But at the time, I either need to pick it up and read it or go, this isn't going to be for me. I think I've heard a few mixed things about it, as to some people like it, some people don't like it. So I don't know whether or not I'm going to, and I just haven't picked it up to see if it's true or not. I have a middle grade, The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnard. I've heard such amazing things about this book. So many people love it. It just hasn't been its time yet, but it will be. So I'm putting it on this list to help it out. Let's pick some more from the actual tin. I have got The Giver. This is a classic by Lois Lowry. I don't know if it's officially a classic, but I feel it's going to be one of those books that will definitely be a classic. It's a YA dystopia. It's actually the first of a quartet, with the second and third books being two completely different stories, and then the fourth book joining all of those stories together. But I hear amazing things about The Giver. Definitely want to read it, and I haven't. So here we go. Let's push me into doing it. Next comes a book that is probably not surprising that I haven't read, because it is huge. It is one that you could do serious damage with if you bash them on the head with it. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrel, by Susanna Clarke. It's a fantasy book. It's massive. I don't really know a huge amount about it. I just hear loads of people loving it. Not everyone. It's not for everyone. But the people I've heard about, the people that I have heard talking about this book make me feel like I will love it once I actually pick it up. It's definitely going to work on my muscles because this is very weighty. So yeah, so this is probably the push I need to actually pick it up. And then just five more. So we are 2/3 through. So another from the tin is A Spool of Blue Thread. So this is by Anne Tyler. I have read one Anne Tyler book and I enjoyed it. Wasn't a total fave, but it was interesting. This one I actually got from the same friend, Dave, when he was clearing out some books. So I was like, and Tyler, I need to give her another go. And it's just sat on my shelf and I haven't read it. So, actually, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrel's also when Dave was clearing out his shelves as well. So these books have just been sat there and not picked up by me. So let's see if I actually pick them up. I have another middle grade. This is the second middle grade on this list, and it's also the last middle grade on this list. So there's only a couple of middle grades on here. I think that's because I do tend to reach for middle grade quite a lot. This one I have done a try chapter of, and I really enjoyed the first chapter. It's just another book kind of hit that mood slightly better, but I definitely do want to pick it up. It's Wildspark. It's by Vashti Hardy. It's a little bit steampunky. There's like lots of kind of mechanisms, like clockworky robot type things in here. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. I don't know a huge amount about it at all, but I definitely remember enjoying the first chapter I read. So I would like to actually read the whole book. Next, I have a Shelter Box book. So I have 2 book subscription boxes. Shelter Box I am still continuing with. And I did a little project this year trying to reread my 2022, was it 22 or was it 21? No, I think it was 22. My 2022 entire book subscription box from Shelter Box. So the next oldest book I have that wasn't from that project is obviously the first one I got in 2023. Except it wasn't, because I did actually read those 2 books. This is the third one I got in 2023. You don't need to know this. But anyway, this is The Map of Salt and Stars by Zen Yokohata. I do think the cover is really pretty. It's very like simple, but it reminds me of a willow pattern plate. And I always love the art of the willow pattern plate, mainly because it's based on a story. This is set in Syria, I think. Yeah, and so it's got a girl who disguises herself as a boy and sets off on an epic quest to chart the globe, which sounds great. So I do think I'm going to enjoy this one, but I won't know until I read it. So that's, again, another push to try and read that one. And then the last one from the TBR tin is, yes, I thought it might be An Arrow to the Moon, which is a Fairy Loot. So Fairy Loot I have now stopped just because I'm piled up with Fairy Loot books and haven't read enough of them. I really enjoy YA fantasy, but it's not my favourite fantasy storytelling. So I feel I've got more than I need. But An Arrow to the Moon, I think, is a fantasy romance. I think it's a bit of a Romeo and Juliet take on the story. And I've just never read it. It was one of the books that we got as an extra book. It wasn't the Fairy Loot book of the month. But it's been sat on my shelf and I haven't read it. And that's like my oldest unread Fairy Loot book. So that's why it's on this one. And the final book for the vets is The Lamplighters by Emma Stonex. Again, this is one that has nearly made it onto my shelf to read a few times, and I just failed at the final hurdle. This is a lovely Waterstones edition where you continue these purple, black and red, like coral red swirly bits onto the pages. It's a thriller. It's got a mystery about a lighthouse. We've got, I think, different timelines in history that's being explored. I'm really interested. I really want to read it, and I just never have. So there we go. Those are all my veterans. They will go in the tin, and over 2025, I will pick some out, and I would like to read at least 4 of the books I've just mentioned. Now I'm going to talk about my new, shiny, exciting books that I haven't read yet and would like to put in this tin and kind of push me to read as well. So the new books that are going to be in the TBR tin are Pet by Akwaeke Emeze. I actually got this book for myself a long time ago, put it under the bed for me to haul and earn. I earned it this year, really delighted. Again, it's been on a few TBRs and just hasn't made it into the pile. I think it's because it's one of those books that I'm now at the point where I'm a little bit worried to read because I'm worried I've overhyped it to myself. And I think I'm just waiting for that perfect reading moment that isn't going to come. I don't feel it's seasonal. I feel I just need a bit of a push to actually read it. So I hope doing this is going to get me through it, because I think I'm really going to love it. I really want to love it. I'm scared I won't love it because I overhyped it, but we'll see. A non-fiction book that I got this year is Break the Mold by Sinead Burke. And this is a book kind of about what it's like to live with a disability and how to not let that hold you back or kind of define you. And I hope that it's going to be insightful and help me understand how to be a better ally to the disabled community. So yeah, looking forward to this one, and I feel it's not too much of a heavy one. It's like got lots of like visuals kind of accompanying it, and it's broken down into chapters, and I really love that the obviously it's broken down into chapters, I mean like digestible chapters, and I really love how the corners are curved. I think this is possibly like a non-fiction that's aimed at sort of like middle grade / YA, so that feels more like manageable for me. Next, I have a load of books I gave myself for Christmas last year, and they should be ones that I should just be able to pick up and easily read, and I just haven't done that. And I think again because I'm like trying to save them for when I just need to pick up and read a book that's sort of easier. So I have this collection of like graphic novels based on Shakespeare stories. So we have so instead of Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, we have the Prince of Denmark Street. Denmark Street is an 80s punk band. So we'll see how that works. Instead of A Midsummer Night's Dream, we have the Midsummer Night's Dream Team, and the Mechanicals are like a heist team. And the one that I find the most funny is not just Macbeth, it's Finley Macbeth. He's a 1970s salesman. I just find the contents of this all hilarious. I got these at Yelp in 2023 and gave them to myself for the Christmas that followed. And they're by Kev F. Sutherland. And I really need to read one of these because I should have done and I haven't. So again, let's see if this works for me. Let's take one out of the pot. So out of the pot I have, out of the tin, sorry. I have The Girl with No Reflection, which is a Fairy Loot book. This is the last Fairy Loot book that I actually got. It's beautiful. It's on a shelf downstairs and I'm leaving it there. But it's so it's YA, it's Fairy Loot, so one of the most recent ones I've had, and I think I'm just letting it sit there because it looks really pretty. It looks really like more of like a lyrical sort of mythical storytelling, but it might be more fantasy romance, I don't know, and I won't know until I read it. I think I'm really going to enjoy that one, so I think that's a good one for me to pop on the list to encourage me to actually pick up and read. Okay, I have a Shelter Box book. So this is one of the Shelter Box books I got this year, and I think this is a really good one for me to put on because I think this is one that's just going to be really easy read. I think it touches some important topics, but also there will be a lot of humour in it as well, because this is Side Splitter by Phil Wang, who is a comedian. My husband's actually read this because I let him read it before me, because who knows how long it would take me. He really enjoyed it and said there's a lot of really good things about sort of colonialism and racism in here as well. So I am really looking forward to this one. But again, just haven't read it yet. I actually have... No, I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about all the books first before we go on to that. So another one from the tin is another Shelter Box book. This is Patchwork. I can't remember who wrote it. And that's because it is hidden behind one of these, and I just can't face unpacking these shelves to get to it. But it was one of the books I recently hauled. It was in a recent Shelter Box, and the story sounds really cool. It's about a girl, and it's about her life and how she navigates kind of a difficult situation. And I can't tell you any more than that because I can't remember any more than that. But I know it feels one that it feels like it's going to be one that I'm really going to enjoy. But again, I haven't picked it up, so this is going to help me do that. Another non-fiction, I have a memoir. I got this from a library sale, and this is Bookworm, a memoir of childhood reading by Lucy Mangan. And again, I feel I'm just saving this book for the perfect reading moment or for a time when I just need something like that. And actually, I just feel it's just going to keep sitting there not being read unless I encourage myself to pick it up and read it and enjoy it. I know my mum really loved this one, and I think it's just going to be a nice, heartwarming one which talks about the joy of reading, which as a reader, what's not to love? Okay, I have a middle grade. It's a very short middle grade. This is a extra book from World Book Day, 2022 World Book Day. So I actually just picked this up from, I think I ordered it as part of an order. I was doing some orders from Waterstones, and I just gave it to myself as a treat this year because it was there. This is Peak Peril by Shana Jackson. Peak Peril is like an extra one for the High Rise Mystery series, which is Nick and Norva are our two detectives who live in the high-rise buildings. I loved the two books that I read, The High Rise Mystery and Mic Drop. I thought they were brilliant. I did actually audiobook them rather than reading them physically, so I'm looking forward to reading this one physically. And again, I think I haven't picked it up because it's so small, and I'm just like, well, I can fit that in and pick it up whenever, and then I'm just not. Okay, 4 more books to go, and then I have 3 more things to talk about. So, I can't open this one from the tin. It doesn't like me. So another fairy loot is the Crimson Moth. It's also known as the Heartless Hunter in the US. This is a Scarlet Pimpernel retelling, but with witches and witch hunters. It's a fantasy romance. I've heard of people really enjoying this one. Fantasy romance is very hit and miss for me. So I'm hopeful that this will be one that I enjoy, because from the sound of it, it sounds like it's got a good plot, which I think I need for it to actually work. Most of them do not have good plots, and I don't have a good time. So I'm hopeful that I will enjoy that one. So it should work. It should be good. The final one I have in here is a middle grade, and it was another one that I rescued from the library in the library sale. It is the Midnight Guardians, and I can't remember who wrote it. But it is one I know that Jack from Spread Bookjoy loved, and I know that Stacey has read recently and highly recommended. And it is set in World War II in Britain, and I think there's a tiger that escapes from a zoo, and it's got fantasy mixed with real world, so it's sort of a bit more magical realism. And it sounds really good, but again, it's one of those books that I know I'm going to read it and know I'm going to enjoy it. It's just sitting on my shelf. So again, push to read. Okay, another push to read book is one of the secret Brandon Sanderson projects. It's secret project number 3. It is Yummy and the Nightmare Painter. I would like to read more of these, and I haven't done, and I think the reason that's stopping me is because I got burnt by Medieval Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England, or something like that. The Frugal Wizard's Guide did not work for me at all, and it made me sad. So I think I'm a little bit concerned. So I need a push. But it looks beautiful. It looks so beautiful, this cover, with it's pinks and blues, and it's sort of swirliness. I'm not sure if this is going to be, it doesn't feel like it's Brandon Sanderson's usual style. It doesn't feel like epic fantasy. It feels a bit more lyrical. So I don't know what this one's going to be like at all. And finally, another book that again I'm not picking up just because I don't know. I feel I'm going to enjoy it, and it's just sat there looking at me and I'm not reaching for it. And that is Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Amelia Wenzel. I've heard really good things about this book. I heard a lot of people really loving it. And I want to pick it up and read it. And I haven't done, which is pretty much what I'm saying about most of these books on here. So yeah, so this is just to kind of like push me to like throw in a surprise and take away any kind of thought behind it and just shove a book at me to read. That is the plan behind all of this. However, if you have been counting, you will notice I am 3 books short of the 15 I would like for the new TBR tin. And that is because I got to a point where I'm like, I don't feel that any that are going to kind of fit what I'm needing from this. Like books that I could just pick up and it wouldn't matter. Other ones feel too like focused in on a particular project or too heavy for me to have as just a quick pick up and read. I'm trying to make sure that I can read them no matter what mood I'm in, is what I've been trying to pick these books out. So I thought, well, actually, I'm going to have this whole year and I'm still going to be hauling books. I'm hoping not to haul huge amounts, but I have my under the book haul. I need to be healthy, and then I can haul books from my under the bed stash. So there is definitely wiggle room for me to add more books in here. So I have 3 slips that I haven't written on yet. One I have labelled middle grade, because there is only one middle grade book in the new list of books, and that was The Midnight Guardians. So I'm just going to leave them in here, and I'll see after I've done a few months of 2025, so maybe around April time, if I have hauled books that I haven't read yet and I feel they would work for this. So there we go. I'm going to put all of these little bits back together and get the rest of the names in here, and then we're all set for plan number 2. So plan number 2 was all about trying to get myself to read new to me books that I just haven't picked up. Plan number 3 is giving myself permission to reread, because I think I have definitely become, I used to be a rereader all the time, and I've definitely become like obsessed with trying to read the books that I have, read new things, and just consuming everything, because it was so exciting to have books that I was really interested in. And BookTube did a huge amount of helping me get back into all of that. But I now have got so many books that I've loved, and I'd quite like to revisit those stories, but I just feel that's always on the back burner because I'm not hitting any goals of like reading my TBR, or like not reading my TBR, like reading what I own. So this is to help me go, do you know what? Rereading's great. You should do that. So I have, pardon me, and again, I thought about maybe doing a list of books I want to reread this year, but I don't always know what mood I'm going to be in. So I've got 4 book titles that I would like to read this year, and also 3 genres, 3 categories of books that I'm going to give myself permission to reread. So the first book is one that I haven't got off the shelf because it's hidden behind, and that is The Book Thief. I read The Book Thief, I can't remember when, it was before the film came out. I definitely remember buying it. Did I even buy it in what used to be Ottica's? So I definitely bought it back where I live in Lincoln. And it could even have been Ottica's at the time when I bought it. It was that long ago. And I was just really excited about this. It was a different kind of book for what I usually kind of go for. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it was one of the books that I kind of recommended that my husband read when he was like, wanted something to read. I was like, you actually might like this one. And then we watched the film together. And yeah, so it's one of those books I really love. So I'd like to give myself permission to read it again. Another one I have is I'd like to give myself permission to reread a YA contemporary that I loved. So this might be something that I have in my house, or it might be something that I'd once borrowed from the library and just haven't got hold of again, like The Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl by Joya Goffney. Or it could be this book here, Case and Calendar's Felix Ever After. I loved this. I loved Confessions of a Good Girl. And I really enjoy YA contemporary books that tackle social issues. I find them really enjoyable. So I'd like to reread some of my favourites. The next ones I've written about is I would really like to reread The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby DeRay. I had an amazing time with this book. I think Abby DeRay is such a talented writer, and you just love the protagonist in here. I adopted her, Adunni. Couldn't remember her name for a minute then. I adopted Adunni. I loved her story. I was just here to follow her wherever she went and just hope for all good things for her. So this is another option, mood dependent. Another category that I'm giving myself is to reread a non-fiction. So I have quite a few non-fictions on my shelves now that I have really enjoyed, such as Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, Gender, a Graphic Guide, and some memoirs like Unicorn by Amru Al-Qadi, the memoir of a Muslim drag queen. So yeah, just giving myself the opportunity to go, do you know what, you could reread a non-fiction. You don't have to keep reading new non-fictions. Maybe rethink because you might have changed your mind, you might have not changed my mind, not like totally, but like you might have read more so you understand the subject a bit better, or have a deeper insight to it, or remind yourself of things you couldn't fully take on board the first time you read it. So yes, rereading a non-fiction. Rereading one of my favourite authors' books because I've never read from this copy before, and that is Zen Cho's Sorcerer to the Crown. So I have my lovely paperback copy somewhere on these shelves. It's a battered, got it from World of Books second-hand book. And I feel I'm going to keep it just because that's the first time I read Zen Cho. And it's nice to have the paperback. But I treated myself this year to the hardback because I love this book. It's not for everyone, but it was definitely for me. It's comedy of manners, society fantasy with fairyland, but the character of Prunella, is it Prunella? I think it's Prunella. I hope it's Prunella. It is Prunella. I love Prunella. So you have two characters in this book who are global majority characters, and they are in white, aristocratic, high society, and that's a racist society. So it was very interesting to see them navigate that and navigate this political fantasy world as well. And the language is very like Austen-esque, and it was just such a comfort read. And I love Prunella, she's amazing. There's some harsh bits in here as well, sort of towards the end, and difficult decisions, but I would love to reread this one. The final category is very vague, and it is to reread a book you loved that you don't own. So it's given me permission to get one of the library books out again, or even to buy a copy of that said book that I would like for my own personal library collection. And I haven't prioritised it because I'm wanting all the new things. So this might be Loud Black Girls, it could be Iron Widow. I have many, many options for this. So that's quite exciting. And again, it's going to be some sort of, let's see how I'm feeling at the point. My final book, again, it's reading from, so this one would have worked for that one, except I already own it. And this is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I treated myself to the Fairy Loot edition, and we have the lovely owl, the golden bees, ribbons, keys, and we have the sword, bee and key that kind of represents different kind of things within the library. And I had a great time with this book. I really enjoyed it. Wasn't perfect, but there's definitely a lot about it that I thought was absolutely fantastic. I ate up, I could have enjoyed and continued with, and just the delight that's in this book. I love the kitchen, that's all I'm going to say. So it would be really nice to reread this one and reread from my own copy that's so pretty. Such a pretty Fairy Loot copy. So there we go. So that's 4 possible reread specific titles and 3 areas. So as well as giving myself permission to reread favourite books, I'm also going to give myself permission to just start a series. Now, considering how I am with my series at the moment, you would think I'd be okay with starting series because I've been starting a lot recently. But that didn't feel like it was like by choice, but more by necessity, because I was reading that book for a different reason and it just happened to be the start of the series. This one is me, oh, they're out of reach, specifically saying, I'm going to start a new series. And what I want to do is I want to just have a nice day. Have a nice day, and I am going to gather around the books where I only have the first book in the series. And I am going to do a little bit of a tea and taste and see which one I fancy reading. So at some point over 2025, I'm going to give myself permission to do that. And the books I have in mind are 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, City of Strife by Claudie Arsenfault, Hood by Stephen R. Lawhead, A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, and The Mask of Mirrors and Wings of Ebony, which I haven't got the physical book for because they're hidden on shelves. But yes, I'm going to do a little tea and taste with 6 of those books and see how I feel. And my fifth and final plan for 2025, I'm really excited about, and it is going to be getting its own video within 2025 to explain what is happening. So I have wanted for a really long time to do more like video series based on genre fiction. And I am predominantly a fantasy reader. I dabble in the other genres, but it's predominantly fantasy that I read across the ages. I'd like to try that with different genres. I'd like to see if I can read and kind of get into different genres and kind of the subgenres within them. And I'm going to do a series of videos called Can I Read? And 2025's project is going to be Can I Read Romance? So I have been doing a bit of research. Some romance books just don't, I'm not interested in them. I'm not interested in picking them up. I feel they're going to annoy me. It's not my cup of tea. But this year